and welcome to Look Down There, the show where we talk about all the things we don't talk about. I'm your host, Michelle Amore. Today, my guest is a proud ice cream daddy, veteran stripper, and community organizer. She is the founder and head creamstress of Paradise City Creamery in Las Vegas. Here she is, Valerie Stunning. Hi, Valerie.
Hi.
Head creamstress. Love it.
Thank you. Thank you. That was bestowed onto me from my brother, of all people.
All right. That's so cute. Good
Yeah.
sibling support right there.
Right? Just trying to
Yeah.
help a sister out, literally. I was like, what do I even call myself? I'm not a chef. I just, I do one thing and I do it very well. And he's like, creamstress, duh.
Duh. Yeah. So I am embarrassed to say that I've never tried your ice cream, which is right up my alley. It's gluten-free. It is plant-based. It's all the things. My only concern is just sugar because I try not to do a lot of sugar. But I was reading you use agave nectar, which is like, yes.
Yes, so we definitely have flavors that we use the agave in, and then we also do organic cane sugar because it's a vegan company. We try to keep it as in line with those principles as much as possible. And yeah, I like to think honestly, I'm not really a big sweets person, and I like to lead with a lot of flavor versus a lot of sugar. So maybe you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Oh, I know I will. Like everything looks beautiful and all the names of your flavors are hilarious.
Thank you. Got to represent.
Yeah, tell me some names that you have.
Okay, so we have Trophy Wife Breakfast, Spoil Me Daddy, Cam Girl Next Door, World's Oldest Professional, not profession, because it's about the professional. Okay.
Exactly. Get it right.
Yes. And we have a few other ones. We have Baby Stripper, that's our strawberry and lemon zest.
Okay, I was just gonna say, is that like cotton candy? Like, what is that?
Yes, because it makes me think of, I don't know, like the sticky sweetness of your lip gloss and your body spray when you first get in the game. And so
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah, like if glitter had a smell, you could personify that. Like that's
Exactly.
I
And
know
then
exactly what
also,
you're saying.
yes. And it's also like a really great lead to conversations with people who maybe aren't industry based or new to a Vegas experience. They're like, baby stripper, that's what, you know?
So, okay, so you're not really into sweets and you're not really a chef, but have you always been very into ice cream? Have you always been vegan? How did these things come together?
Well, so the answer for the ice cream is it's more that I'm into telling stories and I love presentation. And as somebody, I don't eat gluten and I don't eat dairy. And so when I was transitioning out of performing burlesque, I really lost a big creative outlet for myself. And it just was in line at this moment in my life where I was like, damn, I have all these intolerances and I can't enjoy anything indulgent anymore. So that's when I started picking up the hobby for it and just being like, all right, well, let me just throw a shit ton of glitter on this and, add a little flavor to that and see what happens. But it was really just me fucking around at my house for a while and not really going, hey, I'm going to start an ice cream business.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to touch on that too. What made you decide to transition out of burlesque or strip club work?
Well, I'm actually still a stripper at the clubs. Yeah, so I still do that. And honestly, I don't feel like I'm 100% retired from burlesque. I just needed a break from the touring. I know that you're new here in Vegas, and I don't know what your experience has been performing here yet, but my experience was that I always had better paying opportunities when I traveled. And so I was doing a lot of that and I loved it. But it just got to a point where I was like, man, if I could get settled and have some roots somewhere and really just like be home for longer than a few weeks at a time, I'd really love that. And so that's when I started to think like, let's maybe put this aside for now and focus more on like organizing, which I was getting super into at the time. And then one thing led to another.
Yeah, I haven't really performed very much here in Vegas. I'm doing my first performance in a couple of weeks. Like since I've moved here, I've performed here obviously, but yeah, I don't know, Valerie. I'm going through a thing. I'm going through a thing about performance and not quite sure where I'm landing. I have hopes and desires, but I'm not as talented with ice cream as you are.
Yeah, it's funny how that comes together. And honestly, I think for me, it at first it was really scary just realizing like, okay, I want to change. I kind of want to pivot, but I don't know what I want to pivot to. But once I made the decision, knowing that all right, this is the area of my work life that I need to step away from for a while to figure that out, things just kind of fell in line. So yeah, maybe obviously it's probably not going to be ice cream for you, but who knows? Like your journey is endless. And when you just make the one decision, how things unfold after that, it's kind of wild sometimes.
Right. Yeah, when you just commit to that energy shift.
That part.
Yeah. So, how has stripping burlesque, how has that informed your work as a company and also your values as a company? Because you have very strong, admirable values as a company. It's not just ice cream you're selling.
That's true. It's not. I like to think that the people come for the ice cream, but they stay for the other things that we stand for. And so, yeah, I like the three big principles of Paradise City Creamery are celebration, giving back, and conscious indulgence, right? So for me, celebrating sex work and sex workers and how that has like greatly influenced Las Vegas culture is super important. And doing so outside of the context that we normally think of those things, not just at night in like the hidden parts of
In
where
the
the performance.
shadows.
Exactly. It's like, no, this is, 2 o'clock in the afternoon in a fucking gold ice cream cone in your face. Yes, we are here and this is equally our community as well, And I always wanted to be a business owner, to be honest. And I knew that I wanted it to tie directly into the community work that I did and advocating for sex workers and being able to contribute to mutual aids and organizations that are doing real hands-on work and giving back and actually giving money to people when they need it so that they can survive.
And how has being a stripper helped or hindered your experience as a business owner? Because you've been in business for about 2 years
Yeah,
now.
just over 2.5 now.
And one of those years was the pandemic. So good on you.
Yes, yeah, we were open for 9 months before the pandemic hit, and
Cute.
so yeah, a majority of us being in business has been throughout this absolute chaos. And yeah, I mean, stripping teaches you a couple of things, right? It teaches you resilience. You get told no 1,000 times a night. You get told you're not tall enough, thin enough, blonde enough, dark haired enough, whatever it is that somebody is looking for, you are not that most of the time. And so it really builds like your resilience to handling rejection. And when you start a small business, it is so much rejection. Yes, there's a community behind you that's like, rah, rah, we want to see you thrive. But when you're really making the moves to do the things, you make a lot of mistakes because you don't know. And because of those mistakes, you often get told no. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. They're all learning experiences. But stripping has taught me to take that no, put it in my pocket, and keep moving forward and go on to the next thing and not dwell on it so much and internalize it as this like personal failure that I think sometimes is really easy to fall into.
Oh
So,
yeah. Oh
yeah.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's showbiz, right? How many no's do you hear before you get a yes? And if you're basing your confidence solely on those external validations, you're not going to be a really grounded or very happy person.
Hmm, that part. Which is hard to do because like capitalism teaches us, right? Our value is in how much we can produce. And
Mhm.
when you are a business owner, you are therefore part of the capitalist cog. So that in itself, I think, has been like pretty heady for me. Like feeling like someone who is, I don't want to say like a fringe like member of society. But I think when you do sex work and when you come from like the background that I come from, you are kind of like this othered person. And so now to be a part of this more mainstream production, I'm like, okay, how much do I really want to engage with capitalism so that one, we can be successful, and also the more important part is how does that success turn into meeting my goals, which is ultimately like creating more awareness and giving back to the community.
Yeah. And how are you going about finding that balance?
That's a very good question.
Right. Varies from day to day. And I am totally with you because
Yeah.
yes, like I experience this as well. You know, if some things aren't going well in my business, I have some bad days where I have to get back on top of it. And I would assume you might feel the same.
Oh God. Yeah. The peaks and the valleys. Oh, they're deep. And fortunately, I'm not doing it alone. I have my partner who's also a co-owner in the business.
Oh, good.
And so she is definitely a lifeline. And also we have like a really great team. So it's a small team, but the people who gravitate towards wanting to work with us, they are in it because they believe in the mission and our values. And I think when you have people on board that are not just trying to get a quick paycheck, not that I particularly love that phrasing, but for lack of a better one at the moment, who really believe in why this business exists, they want to be there. And so you can talk more openly and frankly, and communicating and relationship building is so much a part of the structure of our business. And I think that's really helped through a lot of those valleys, is being able to show up and talk to the team at the kitchen and be like, today is a hard day, so please bear with me. And like, we're going to do what we came here to do, but also I just want you to know where I'm at. So it stays.
Yeah. I mean, communication about that stuff is so important, especially when you're leading a team and
Mhm.
letting them know, like, this is the filter that I'm working with today and be gentle.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. And I want to know when they're going through the same. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It definitely helps to inform that communication. When I used to run a burlesque troupe, I just said the same thing. I would always come to them and be like, hey, you know what? This and this is happening. I'm not doing great. And hoped that they would feel comfortable enough to do the same with me, because you never know like what people are dealing with. And if they're trying to just swallow it and keep it down, and then it comes out at you in a strange and awkward way, it can really create a lot of friction in the company when you're trying to do something beautiful.
That's, yeah, 100%. And I really feel that's derivative of our culture, right? Like the whole ethos behind so much business is it's not personal, it's just business. And I really reject that. I feel like no, business is personal. Business is like it's your child. It's representative of who you are, and like what your values are. And that is personal, right? It's
Mhm.
so how you show up for yourself and then for your team and how you create those relationships, it's going to matter, like the output of what you're doing.
Mhm. Have you had any pushback or obstacles or judgment from people who are like, oh, stripper ice cream? What's that about?
Oh my god, yeah. Oh yeah, I've definitely um
Or just people completely overstepping their boundaries, crossing lines because they
that
think
part.
you can just, like, how many lick it jokes do you hear?
Oh
Seriously.
my god. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's this really this nuanced thing, right? Being a part of the culinary community now, and working with a lot of talented and experienced people who are also rooted in a very backwards way of thinking. And restaurants,
Really
oh,
toxic environment. Yeah.
oh my goodness. Yeah. And like, listen, my first job when I was 15 was working at McDonald's. And I waitressed all throughout high school in shitty New Jersey diners. And then before I became a stripper, my last restaurant gig was managing a steakhouse on Wall Street, right? So I have kind of been in the restaurant industry like a big chunk of my life before I started the business. And yeah, toxic is unfortunately encapsulates a lot of the behind the scenes energy. And obviously it's very male dominated, and just, oh yeah, when you take when you take that energy and then you take my now experience like in history as a sex worker and like what my brand represents, you can definitely there are some unsavory things that come up sometimes where you're like, excuse you? Like, or just people thinking that, they could take advantage of you in a certain way. Like, I've definitely met some of those where one, they talk down to you because you're a woman, and then two, they're talking down to you because you're just a silly slut that doesn't know any better. And you must not, you must have gotten here from sucking all the dicks. Like that kind of thinking. But at the end of the day, I really like to think about Dolly Parton.
Yes.
She had some great one-liners about just being treated like the dumb, slutty, silly broad, and then at the end of the day, walking away with all the money because nobody sees you coming. And there's something in that.
Always find inspiration in Dolly. She's great.
Dolly for president.
Oh yes, please. Please. I think you have a lot in common with Dolly. I mean, she is all about giving back to the community and building people up, and that's what you're doing.
Thank you. What a great compliment. I'll take any likeness to Dolly any day.
Yeah, I'm on the note of, people crossing the line with you or overstepping boundaries. I mean, that's something that I kind of came into awareness of during the pandemic when I was taking a class and we were asking about boundaries. And I was like, do I have any? I don't know if I have any. Why would I have any? I take my clothes off for a living. I don't have boundaries. And then I'm like, wait a minute. Yes, I do have boundaries. And I thought about the many instances over the span of my career, which is almost 20 years, where my boundaries have been completely crossed. And I just laughed it off because I didn't want to make problems. I didn't want to make waves. I didn't want to be that girl,
Mm.
right? And like fed into the system, and yeah, felt like I didn't have the space to say no, that's not okay. Like, yes, I understand what I do for a living. I understand how those things are conflated in your head, but this is not okay. So is that something that you took time to learn over the course of your career, or were you with that on that right away the whole time?
I feel this ties really nicely into what I learned from stripping and creating boundaries and having hard ones because of the nuance of being like a sexual performer, right? So you're in a space, you're naked, you're literally on someone, and there's just like a very hard boundary from one slight movement, a fraction of an inch from where they are to where you are, where it's like this is okay and this is not okay. And so you have to establish that in the beginning in order to create some sort of protection for yourself and just let them know like, I'm watching. And yeah, I feel stripping has definitely helped me with setting boundaries. And also, there is something about being in a new industry, in a new business, that the boundaries in the beginning were a little nilly-willy, kind of like, yeah, I have them set in stone and I'm very confident and I feel very in charge of my business at the club. But because this is new and because you want to be a team player and you want to, not ruffle too many feathers because you're the new guy on the block. And then after like the first year, I was like, no, this is stupid. This is the same shit it is in any industry. Like, either it works or it doesn't. Like, I'm not going to break my back and fucking like do something I don't want to do just to possibly appease somebody for whatever potential opportunity, that might be. It's just,
Yeah, because it never works out. And if it works out, you're not going to feel good about it moving forward. You're always going to have that in the back of your mind. And then who knows where that boundary is going to be pushed the further on you get.
yeah. And you're always going to end up resenting the output. And I didn't start my own business to resent the work that I do.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
So one of your taglines of Paradise City Creamery is be the pleasure you want to see in the world.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Well, that's really in line with the celebration aspect of it, right? Like, yes, celebrating the culture and the world that I come from, but also I really love the idea of taking the ethos behind stripping, which is to make people feel good, right? And celebrated and special in the moment that you're performing for them, and bringing that to ice cream. And it's like, how can you create something that's, yes, visually stunning and also taste amazing, but in the moment makes you feel so special and seen. And so I love incorporating that, and that's where that line comes from.
But let's talk about pleasure and women's pleasure in particular, and also women's pleasure surrounding eating.
Oh.
These are all very heavy topics.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, how did you come to like pleasure is really important to me. And it's something that I have to remind myself of because like I run a business and it's not always pleasurable. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's hard work. It can make me cranky. And I have to remember like take some moments, have some pleasure here. And there's many different areas you can find pleasure. I think when we think of pleasure, we think of sex only.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so much pleasure to be had, especially in eating. But there's always so much guilt and shame surrounding pleasure in general, but also surrounding eating.
Yeah. Wow. I think you really hit a lot in that one statement. And yeah, I think for me, I used to, so I used to do this thing on my Instagram way before I started the Creamery, and it would just be like these smutty little 20-second videos of me eating whatever it was, right? And I just felt like it was something you don't see a lot of. It's always like, if it is a smiling woman with food, it is a big bowl of salad. You
Yep.
know?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And it's never messy and it's never tactile. It's just, so I used to do that. And when, creating the brand for me, Paradise City Creamery, it's really fun. And I just knew that I always wanted to showcase and celebrate a variety of different types of people, being the opposite of like quaint and just polite when they're eating. Because for me, ice cream, yes, it's sexual in nature, right? But it's also really tactile and it's a fucking mess. And there's something really fun about that, and leaning into that. And in my mind,
There's no more humbling experience than holding a cone and trying to catch the ice cream before it runs down your whole hand.
yes, exactly. And it just, to me, it's a reminder to just have fun with it. That yes, okay, it can be so serious, all the behind the scenes things that you don't think of when A, running a business, and then B, creating like flavors and thinking about how people are going to experience the whole product at the end. But the reminder at the end of the day is that this shit melts, and just fucking get at it.
Be
Yeah.
in the moment. It's about presence. Ice cream is presence.
Yes.
It's a gift. Yes.
Exactly. And so our Instagram and a lot of our photos that we take, they are like the real people who come through who are just having fun with it. And I think there is something really transformative in a very small amount of time for somebody to just be like, yeah, let me get with this cherry and just stick the tongue out and do the thing, and just, have fun and be kind of slutty with it.
Yeah. What has your relationship with pleasure and with eating been over the course of your life, and how has that changed?
Ooh, great question. Uh I would say I didn't really start looking at food and as like cuisine, right? And really taking the moment and being mindful with my food until I started working at that restaurant on Wall Street. Yeah. So everything before that, eating for me, like I grew up definitely working class, poor family. So eating was just a means of survival. Like there wasn't a banquet of options. It was the same 5 meals that we had like every week cycle through. And then like, your welfare school lunch. Like, so I didn't really have like the best palate growing up, but working at that restaurant in New York opened my eyes to so many things that I had never even thought to try before. Like what the hell is a filet mignon versus a ribeye steak. To me, meat was meat. It's like it was a fucking chicken tender that you battered and threw in the thing. And so I learned so much just there alone. And after that, I immediately started traveling. So I had spent 4 years at that job. And then when I left, I moved to Australia. And
Oh,
then, from there, I just like kept bouncing around because when I was in Australia, I started stripping. So that gave me the means to keep going with it. Right. And then that's how I started learning so much about food and really taking pleasure of like, what are these different tastes and ingredients and spices and how different cultures do different things. And that really transformed like the way I thought about food and eating and like being mindful.
yes. And I have to ask because I love food, I love eating, I always have. Um, but when I realized that I could no longer have bread, and I could no longer have cheese, which I have a little bit now, um, or sugar, like that was pretty soul crushing for me, and to figure out how I could get that same kind of pleasure from these kind of quote unquote fake foods. They're not fake. They're
Yeah.
just food. It's whole food. It's not processed. It's good food, but it was so challenging for me to like find pleasure in my vegetables.
Mm, yes. Okay. So I always like to joke around because I lived in France for a little bit and I went so hard on all the bread and every cheese imaginable. And I think when I left that country, that is when my body was like, you're done, bitch. No more gluten, no more dairy ever again. Like, if you have a lifetime cap of how much of that you could eat, I hit mine in the span of 6 months. And I just, yeah, that's pretty much like the timeline of when I started noticing I had these intolerances, right? And I really relate to that of like, man, how do you find this piece of asparagus like
I
equally?
actually had asparagus this morning for breakfast. I truly did. Like,
Now I know you can do amazing things with asparagus, but when I was
yes.
first learning how to cross to the other side, right? Yeah, no, it was hard. And there's so much stigma, right? There's a lot of stigma about food in general, right? In touching on like what we were just saying about finding the pleasure in eating, but food is so excuse me, food is so politicized. And words like vegan and gluten-free and plant-based have become like have become filtered through this like hyper liberalism that
Mhm.
people think that when you mention a word like that, it automatically ties into some kind of political belief of yours and they want to shut it down and not even consider it because it's just become politicized, right? But if you think outside of those terms and you're like, wow, like our ice cream, for example, right? We make our own raw cashew milk in house and we never use any artificial flavoring. And we really work hard to make every single thing ourselves so we know where the ingredients are coming from, right? at the end of the day, you are going to feel 100 times better eating something that we've made versus something that some giant corporation made in a factory using the cheapest ingredients possible to get the highest margins of profit possible, right? Because of the thought and the intention and how like specific, and frankly because it's plant-based and gluten-free, because a lot of times the body, even if you don't have an allergy like I do, the body just has a harder time processing those things.
Yeah, especially like unhealthy versions of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Like what you were talking about Paris, and I've just been dreaming. Were you talking about Paris or just France in general?
France in general, but
France
yes.
in general. But I've been thinking about Paris a lot lately, and I am dreaming about their croissants. And like, oh, yeah, I'll come back now. But I found that eating those things in Europe was a little less harsh for me than eating them here. And so for that reason, that's why I want to go back. Like
Yeah.
get into it. But yeah, when I started making the change about 5 or 6 years ago, before I was on a steady diet of mac and cheese and bourbon and like all things starch.
For
I
life.
loved it. Oh my God, are you kidding me? And I looked down on people who were like, oh, gluten free, and then I became that person. Um, but yeah, so it was a hard shift for me to make because it was just so ingrained in me for years, 30 some years. That's what I ate.
Mm-hmm.
And then having to say like, no, is it gluten free? And then people are thinking that you're doing it just because you're worried about your shape and your weight and all that. And it's like, no, I'm worried about how I feel inside because when I have gluten, I become very depressed,
Oh
very
my God.
depressed.
I was just thinking that. Yeah, inside and mentally up here, it
Hmm.
affects like your body is a representation of what's going on. Like it's
Yeah,
all tied together.
exactly. Like this is not me trying to fit into a certain mold. Like this is me trying to function through life. And so I definitely got a lot of eye rolls about it. But what it did teach me is how to be a better advocate for myself and to ask for the things that I want.
Mm,
When you go to a restaurant and, does it have this, and asking all these questions and knowing that you're being the difficult person, right? Or the difficult woman, which is such a stigma. But when it comes to your health and your body and your emotional and mental states, I mean, these are things that we have to protect and keep our boundaries in place.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I feel like you touched on something else there too. You're very good at this, by the way.
Thank you, Valerie.
But yeah, as women, asking for what we need is fucking hard. And
Hmm.
so, yeah, especially when you are being considered the difficult person, like at the table, there are times where I'll just call ahead at a restaurant if I know I'm meeting friends, just to be like, yo, can you accommodate me? Otherwise, I'm gonna eat a big old meal before I come and just sip on some fucking sparkling water or whatever is going on?
Hmm.
Like, it's, yeah, the eye rolls you get.
So many eye rolls, so many.
Especially from the servers. Oh my God, I have something that we put on our website because I just feel like it's so integral to my journey into the creamery. And it just basically says something about I just got so fed up of another sulking server walking back to my table after asking them if they could accommodate gluten-free and like dairy-free desserts, and them just being like, we have sorbet, you know.
Yeah.
Just being like,
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
more sorbet,
Yeah.
no
What
more
I
dessert.
what I've taken to saying is like, look, I know it's a pain in the butt for you, but it's more of a pain in the butt for me. So let's get
Mhm,
on with it. Like you don't have to deal with this.
exactly.
Hmm. Well, Miss Stunning, I can't wait to eat your ice cream this weekend. I'm so excited.
Yes, we're gonna walk you through a proper tasting. We're gonna have you
Okay.
get the full picture.
Wonderful. I'm so excited. I'm glad I've been waiting for this perfect moment to indulge and have some pleasure.
We got you covered. Thank you
Yes.
so much.
All right. So tell everyone where they can find you and find Paradise City Creamery.
Yes. Okay. So coming up this Friday, you can find us at Garage East Wine Room and Merchant in the Arts District. It's right across the street from Tacotarian. You can't miss us. We're a big pink tent. And that's going to be from 4 to 10 p.m. And then this coming Monday, we're going to be at Vegas Test Kitchen, and they have a full-on spread of all these different vegan chefs. And we are going to be the featured dessert, and that is on Fremont Street, right next to Ferguson's, the outdoor like shopping like little plaza that they have. So yeah, if you find us on Instagram at Paradise City Creamery and on our website paradisecitycreamery.com, all the details are going to be listed. You can't miss it, and then you can always just call us or DM us on Instagram. Yeah, we're also
Wonderful.
on TikTok and Twitter. Yes.
Oh man, you're on TikTok? I haven't gotten there yet.
We did it. We took the jump.
Oh no.
I'm not doing it personally.
Oh, good for you. Yeah, I just like my heart is just sinking thinking about, do I have to? Please God.
Ideally, if you can find someone else, like for me, I was like, who's the closest Gen Zer I know that I can like give some money to, who would be stoked to do this? And so that's the route we're taking with it.
Yes, that's what I need. And if they need some extra work, please send them over to me because I am in need of a lot of help.
Got you.
Yes, cool. All right, everyone. Now that we got all of our personal business things out of the way, it's time for you to spread your legs and spread the love. Like us, share, and subscribe, and tell your friends. Share this with your friends. And the next time you're in Vegas, make sure you look up Paradise City Creamery for all their delicious treats. You can follow us at I Look Down There or follow me at Michelle Amore on Instagram. And remember, be the pleasure you want to see in the world and grab a mirror and look down there. Until next time.